I am Professor Brian Copeland. I am principal of the St. Augustine Campus of the University of West Indies, and this is my Take 10 with TVET. In the specific instance of TVET, and we speak of academia and the bias and the stigma that is placed on TVET. I think it needs to be understood that the UE model was patterned after the University of London. That's a UK and European university, and they were birthed as institutions where the pursuit of knowledge was #1 priority. The issue of relevance to the workforce and so on was pale in comparison to that particular pursuit. US universities, however, about half of them, they're the liberal arts that pattern themselves after the UK, were looking more at the world of work and how do you impact upon the world of work. So enter TVET. TVET is about, it spells out technical and vocational educational training. And it's educational training that provides knowledge and skills for employment. It's usually thought of in connection of what we call the trades. That's where the stigma comes in, unfortunate as it is. Its essence, however, has been captured in the definition of educational frameworks that go all the way now to PhD levels. That's significant. UE has for very many years been increasing its focus on producing work-ready graduates. And this has been the case particularly for the professional faculties like medicine and law and engineering. And in particular, I have to say for medicine has always been an area of study that has engaged the world of work. You have interns, you have clinical engagements as the students go through the system, in our case, 5 years. That engagement with the patients and so on, that is where they get the hands-on experience for the world of work. So I think we have also erred over the years and not recognize that there's a strong TVET component in many of the things we do. We don't call it that at the university, part of the stigma, I would guess, but it has been there. Our engineering recently introduced an internship program. It also runs a pre-engineering program that includes a more traditional TVET component, certified by the way, where students done overalls, go 2 days a week, they go to one of the providers, and they engage in various disciplines in the TVET spectrum. So all in all, I think that whereas it's a work in progress, yes, there has been that perception of academia and the lofty heights and all that. I think that has worn away now. And the reality has faced us, especially at the university, that we need to have our feet more strongly placed on the ground and engage in education. At every instance, when you're starting a new strategic plan, you strip everything off. You question the importance and relevance of every aspect of your operation. It might seem trivial, but it is important that you understand what it is your operation is, how it works, and why, most importantly, why is it doing what it's doing. So for example, when I became principal, I questioned, and of course I got a lot of pushback on this. I asked people, what is the real purpose of education and our national education system? And I just wanted to say that my view then and now is that it's more than just preparation for the labor force. That's what most people say it is. They're not wrong, but it is more than that. I think it embraces as well, for example, many things. And the two key aspects it embraces is that you have to also build for the future. There are areas of work that do not exist now that will exist in the next 20 years. What are those? And who creates those? That's an important thing. And it should your institution be one of the prime movers in creating that space. So building that potential to create and develop altogether new business opportunities is something that has to be considered when you're talking about a national education system. And national education system means not just universities, everybody. Universities as part of the whole. But perhaps the most important aspect is one that I think is largely ignored and is very fundamental. We have to ensure that every citizen is well prepared to face the best and the worst of times. We're going through some pretty bad times right now. Believe me, it's not the worst. We've seen worse. But our citizens well prepared for that? And I put it to you that the answer is no. And so I think there's a discussion needs to take place. Yes, within the institution, you could only do so much. You do what you can. But also, if some consideration can be given to the broader framework, I think that's a good start. So once you have that in mind, then the answers will tell you where to go. I'm not going to get into too much details about the different strands, because it all depends on who you are. But the one thing I would say you need is, and that's something that we found out here, is a temptation always to use your staff to drive these things, but they're doing their regular work. If you want to do it well, I'm afraid you're going to have to invest in a very, very specific, focused a resource, a human resource that could guide the process forward, a project manager, if you like, that will take the initiatives that you come up with and move them forward. Or else you'll just be spinning top and mud. And at the end of the day, you'll probably achieve half of what you wanted to do and not get to where you want to get to. As a small country and a small region, we don't have that luxury, and we're going to have to spend a little bit more on those very specific, I call them resource focal points, to ensure that we achieve our objectives. Yeah, but it does start with just strip everything off and ask the questions. You might think it's silly. Others will think it is. Ask the question. You'll be surprised at the answers. For a silly question, you get so many different answers from different people, which tells you it's not a silly question to ask. COVID-19 has some benefits like a wildfire. I mean, forest fires raging in the West, but forest fires bring the source for life anew. So COVID-19 has catalyzed our move to go online. We've always been talking about it, we're moving along very slowly. So within a week we were online, right? That's great. The delivery mechanisms have to be worked out, meaning that there's still some training that has to be done with staff who are not prepared for this. It takes a while to acclimatize yourself. And then there's also the tools and supporting processes. We have to work all that out, but we're there. Now, in terms of the other occurrences, that's what sort of would have forced us there. I have to say, number one would have been, and we were speaking of this before COVID, is the need for UE to go global. We are seeing, we have been seeing for the last 2 or 3 years, saturation in the sectors that we support. Medicine, law to a certain extent. Medicine is by far the one that is on top in terms of saturation. Law, engineering to a certain extent. And of course that's impacted on by the economy and the availability of jobs. So we saw that happening, and we are producing something, in the case of medicine, something like 300 graduates every year. And I've always made the point, with a country this small, you're bound to reach some sort of tipping point where it's going to reach a point where you're saturated, and we reached that before COVID. The answer is, therefore, how do you treat with that? The answer to that question is go global. Because you've built all these resources up, you don't dump them and say, okay, we'll switch medicine off for the next 10 years. So that those who are in the field, typically for 30, 40 years, they'll start to see a gap and then you start to fill it again. No, it doesn't work like that. So we said, let's go global. So many billions of people in the world, we don't need many to keep us happy. And if you look at us, look at newspapers, you see that we came up with the concept of the Global School of Medicine to be implemented at the South Campus. And the focus of that school is primarily an international curriculum. Locals could register, but it's aimed at a foreign market. So how do you deal with a foreign market? You better be able to excite them, and you better be able to reach them where they are. And that again speaks to the ability to go online, the use of technology, the change in pedagogy, the change in culture, because a different demographic you're dealing with. All those changes now, we have kind of have ideas to what needs to be done, but it will take about 2 or 3 years to really nail it down to within a ball of acceptance, so to speak. Yeah. So it's an economic drive that is forcing us now to change the way in which we do things. COVID has just been the accelerator and all of that. Okay, so I'd like to thank you for joining me and the National Training Agency in this morning's episode of Take 10 with TVET. It's been enjoyable. I wish I had 10 hours because there's so much more to say. But I think that what I have indicated is enough to provide solid food for thought. All the best to everyone. Stay safe.